In this video guide, we will show you how to submit your RSS feed to the iTunes directory. By listing your feed to the iTunes directory, your content appears in the music store. And the music store is where people really search for your podcast and subscribe to your podcast. Okay. Of course, to be able to submit a podcast, you need an iTunes account. So if you don't have an account, let's go ahead and click on the Sign In button and click on Create New Account. Creating an iTunes account is totally free, and so is podcasting. But when you create an account, iTunes makes you put a credit card on file. We've already created an account, but we encourage you to go ahead and create an account since that's the only way you can put your podcast to iTunes. So go ahead and create an account if you don't have one. You can submit your podcast to iTunes in 4 simple steps. We've already shown you a few of these steps in the previous videos, but I'll go over a few of them right now. Step number 1 is to create your audio content. And step number 2 is to upload this content to a public web server. And the third step is to create your RSS feed and to validate this feed. In our case, our RSS file sits on www.seeitdoit.tv. And the final step is to submit your RSS URL to iTunes. So let's go ahead and do that. But before we do that, let's do a simple test to make sure that our feed is really ready for iTunes. So launch iTunes, and from the Advanced menu, let's select Subscribe to Podcast and enter your feed URL in the text box. Click OK. iTunes now tells us that there's a problem. So let's look at the problem, let's correct it, and let's retest it. Looks like there is a problem. I think we typed the wrong URL. So let's clear out the old entry and correct the URL, and let's resubmit it. You don't get the exclamation mark anymore, so it looks like iTunes likes our URL. Now that the RSS file passed the test, let's go to the music store and click on Submit a Podcast. This takes us to the submission page, and let's go get our URL. So that's our URL. Let's copy that, go back to iTunes and put it in the text box. And let's now go and click Continue. We need to put our user ID and password, which is our iTunes account. Let's click on Continue. So this is now our preview page where you can look at your submission before you click on Submit. That's it. That's our thank you page, and we're done. Once submitted, you receive an email that looks like this, telling you that your listing was successfully added and awaiting approval. The approval process usually takes a couple of days or a few hours. In our case, it took only a few hours. Once iTunes approves your podcast, you get another email which contains a link, and clicking on that link actually takes you to your own podcast on iTunes. That's it. Isn't that cool? That was pretty simple, wasn't it? I must say that the podcasting community have kept it really simple and basic so that anyone can get into this game. You can of course submit your listing to many other directories, which we will cover in other video guides, but the iTunes submission is really important because iTunes is the most prominent player in the market. About 20 to 30% of internet users have iTunes worldwide, and currently it is the most popular medium for podcasting. It has millions of users using it, millions of iPods are hooked into it, so we strongly encourage you to get into the game and join the podcasting revolution. And that's it. That brings us to the end of our presentation.